The Canon 5D Mark II was truly a revolutionary camera. Now I know this word is being thrown out a lot these days, but trust me, it was a revolutionary camera. Came out in 2008 and it was the first DSLR to film full HD 1080p video. It enabled photojournalists, photographers, and newcomers to start making videos. It let filmmakers achieve that filmic look in a relatively small and inexpensive body. It was a milestone camera. The hype was real when it came out. Everyone was talking about how it was used to film some parts of House, the TV show. Vincent LaForet's short film was a viral success, showcasing what this camera can do. It was basically shot on iPhone before shot on iPhone. But it wasn't Canon's marketing strategy that did that. It was the community that embraced this new tech. In fact, it was so well received, it took Canon by surprise. It even convinced the company to spin off specialized cinema line of cameras. The 5D Mark II changed industries, and it changed my life too. It was my second professional camera, and I feel like I owe a lot to it. Some of my favorite photos were taken on the 5D line. I filmed some of my first YouTube videos with it, which I'm too embarrassed to show you here. I used the Mark III to take photos of sitting president, and I took thousands of products photos for the Verge with the Mark III, the Mark IV, even Mark II as a few years ago. This camera line truly holds a special place in my heart. And since then, the 5D line became the R5 line, a mirrorless equivalent. And today in my hands, I'm holding the spiritual successor to the 5D, the R5 Mark II, but can this camera have the same cultural impact as the revolutionary 5D Mark II? This camera is a long-awaited successor to the R5. And R5 is a camera which marked a new age for Canon, and the Mark II comes with some new ideas in a familiar look and feel. The R5 Mark II can film internally in 8K, it has a stacked sensor, 45 megapixel photos, eye-controlled autofocus, it has 8.5 stops of IBIS, 30 frames of continuous shooting, and so on. It is an impressive camera with impressive specs, but what made me enjoy using it wasn't all about the specs. This camera felt familiar. It felt comforting. It's been out for a few months and there are many great reviews out there, so go check those out. Instead, I want to try something new here. I will pick 3 of my favorite photos that I've taken with this camera and tell you what each photo taught me about the R5 Mark II. So let's start with the first one. So personally and professionally, I switched to a APS-C sensor system for a number of reasons. Smaller bodies, smaller lens, lighter gear, good enough quality for what I need. But astrophotography is one area where I find that system lacking. So here are some photos taken with my various Fuji cameras over the last few years. And yeah, I really like all of those. Don't get me wrong, they look great in the video, they will look great on social media, but once you start pixel peeping and processing these photos, you start to see its limitations. Going back to full frame sensor made me realize how much I missed it. This is my first photo I wanted to highlight. A cold, quiet, windless night on top of a winding road overlooking the Emerald Bay at Lake Tahoe. Soon enough after taking this photo, I was very okay with the extra weight of the camera and the lenses. It was worth it. In fact, that argument isn't even as strong as it was a few years ago. The difference in weight aren't that big. 660 grams for the Fuji X-H2S compared to the R5 740 grams for the body alone. Not that big of a difference. The lenses are a different story though. I'll give you that. But ever since that first photo, I just kept going out every night to keep taking more and more astro photos. Once again, I was hooked. My second photo is this one. A man taking his cigarette break on a rainy, cold night, exhaling smoke out of his nostrils. And here I want to talk about this camera's autofocus system. It is good. It is better than good. It is great. But from just my everyday experience and using many cameras, I still find it just a bit less accurate than what I get with a Sony camera, specifically when it comes to video. This was also evident in some more challenging environments, like the silhouette of a person taking photos of a sunset. It just kept drifting in and out and hunting focus more than the Sony would. When it comes to photos, I did find the system extremely reliable. There weren't many situations where the autofocus stopped me from getting my shot, including this photo. I was trying to be sneaky. I kept my camera down near my hip, kind of sideways, had subject detection turned on, and I snapped a few photos hoping my framing was correct and that the autofocus would do its job. And it did. The only thing I do wish was better is this eye-tracked autofocus. Basically, how it works is when you're using the electronic viewfinder, the camera will focus wherever your eye is looking at in the frame. I absolutely love this idea in theory, but in practice it just wasn't as reliable as I was hoping it would be. Although I can't wait to see this stuff improve because those kind of features are really mind-blowing. And lastly, for my third favorite photo, I'm picking this one of the Golden Gate Bridge. I was hoping for a bit more of that famous fog rolling through, but sometimes you just have to work with what you get. Small, tiny cloud passing over the bridge. Still charming in its own way. Similarly to my first photo, it is a nice reminder of how nice and crisp full-frame photos are. The 45 megapixel photos from a stacked sensor gave truly beautiful results, even in non-landscape photos. And another side effect of moving back to the Canon system for the time being is that I rediscovered my love for post-processing images. I've gotten a little bit lazy lately since all my Fuji's photos are just mostly unedited. Ultimately, we have so many options in various cameras nowadays that a choice of which camera to use often comes down to smaller things like ecosystem, reliability, form factor, batteries, and just picking the right tool for the job. For beautiful landscapes, this camera did fantastically well. I've set up this question at the top and I already knew the answer for it. I don't think the R5 Mark II will have the same cultural impact as the 5D Mark II. Those days are kind of gone. You can argue that there's only one camera with similar impact since 2008, and that was the iPhone, or any smartphone camera, but let's be real, it's mostly the iPhone. But using the R5, just like the 5D, still felt like riding a bike. A very modern, souped-up bike. And it's also super fun to look at these two cameras and compare them and see how the world, our needs, and our culture has changed in 16 years since. The R5 now has 5,850 autofocus points with subject detection versus only 9 in 2008 without any subject detection. Autofocus became such a big deal for companies to work on. This camera now takes 30 photos in a second versus 3.9 back in the day. It also has a flippy screen because we're all kind of content creators now making vlogs, so we have to film ourselves. It processes photos blazingly fast. Dual memory card slot is here. The CF cards are now obsolete. There's a whole lot more controls than ever before, but all the main buttons are still in the same place. Again, it is comforting and familiar. And all those specs are impressive, but regardless of how our tech has changed, it is your own imagination and ideas that will help you grow and achieve your vision. A camera is just a tool to help you get there, so pick the one that fits you the best. Thank you so much for watching. A few questions for you. 1, a little bit of a new format. Tell me how you like it. And 2, since this wasn't just like a straightforward review, you probably have some questions about the camera, so let me know if I can help you answer them down below.